is 6:30. In case nobody else noticed, our fearless leader Steve Values is absent this evening, so I would like to call to order the September 30th meeting of the Finance Committee. Welcome, everyone. Mike, I know we have a pretty packed agenda tonight, but before we jump in, I just want to run through a few quick things. I think I'm going to do a roll call because there's so many people on that I can't even see everyone on my screen. So, Bonnie. Okay, we have no Bonnie yet. Bill.
Yes.
All right. Mike.
Yes.
Rick.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
Steve is absent. Kevin.
I'm here.
All right, awesome. Paula. Here. Aaron.
Here.
I know Zach is here. And Bonnie, are you in here yet? Fabulous. The only person we're missing is Steve. All right, with that, a couple of quick updates. We received revenue projections today from Mike, so thank you so much for that, Mike. Steve and I have the reporting from the schools. We've got to get that out to you. He just wanted to review it quickly first, but we will definitely be sending that over. We have all been asked to attend a joint meeting with the school committee and the select board on the 15th at 6:30. So if you could please check your social calendars and let Steve and I know if you're available to join us, that would be lovely.
Did you say 15th or 16th?
Yeah, what was the date again?
It's the Thursday, the 15th of October. So make sure you're looking at your October calendar, not your September calendar.
Going to be an invite sent out, Amy?
There will be an invite coming from our friends at NPS. So those are my very brief updates. So Mike, what do you have for us this evening?
We could start, I'll actually try and share my screen here. So at the last meeting, you were looking for some more information on Alnylam, and are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to show you with the TIF. So if you look at the graph that's attached, if a typical, well, the bottom line is the value of the raw land, 200,000. Then if a typical spec warehouse was built, the value would have been 2 million. And then the estimated value of the building built by Alnylam was estimated at the time to be 4 million. And the value and also the permit fees were estimated to be at 500,000. In the end, the value is around 8 million, and the permit fees were 1.7 million. And is that new spreadsheet showing? Or do I have to close out the first one?
No, you might have to close this one. All I still see is this slide.
All right, I'll do that. Okay.
Now we see it.
All right. So this shows the TIF values over the 13 years. And so you can see what was originally estimated is just outside the Excel spreadsheet boxes for the bottom, if you go down to the bottom line, 4,105,901 was the estimated value, and the value actually came in at 8,222,865. And the permit fees, you can see there the difference, $1,784,247 versus the $500,000, and the total value $10,007,112 versus the original $4,605,901. So in the first year of the TIF, instead of an estimated total real estate taxes to the town of $436,000, it's $878,764. And the second year, instead of $55,057, it's $100,125. And you can see the progression going down.
Madam Chair, or Amy?
Yes, Aaron, go right ahead.
Thank you. Mike, tell me what you think of my general take on this whole thing. It seems to me like this is a pretty nice win for the town. We're dealing with a good corporate citizen based on our early experience in dealing with them, and the 25 jobs that we're altering is, in the grand scheme of things, not a very big deal. Do you agree with my assessment there?
I personally do agree with your assessment there. You know, the company's been great to work with, and we've actually been approached by the state with 2 other possible pharmaceutical companies because this has put us on the map as an attractive town for dealing with pharmaceutical companies. Those deals didn't fall through because the building owner of the building where the companies were going to go both times ended up taking the building off the market. But we were one of 3 finalists for one of the last pharmaceutical company that was going to come in.
That's great. So, Mike, I actually also reached out to Laura Parker on the Economic Development Committee just to get the feedback from them on this as well. And the questions I asked were, this seems to be just kind of an administrative thing that we need to check the box because we're going to be a little bit short on headcount for the hiring piece, and that the state could come back and take issue with this tip if we don't adjust that number. And she confirmed that that was the case. And she let me know that this requested change passed the EDC unanimously.
Thank you.
So if that helps anyone out in FinCom land make decisions, I'm just sharing that information.
And also representatives from the company are here tonight at the meeting if you have any questions.
Are there any more questions for Mike or for the gentlemen that are joining us from Elm Island tonight? All right. If there are no further questions, Mike, do you want us to vote this now, or would you like us to wait?
I'd like you to vote it now if you could. Hopefully we can vote quite a few of the articles.
I think that sounds fabulous.
So what article number? Let me see.
I'm looking. 16.
Article, yep.
So I would entertain a motion to recommend Article 16.
Me?
Yes, Aaron.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend Article 16 as written.
Second.
All right, I had like 3 seconds. I heard Bill for sure, so we'll go with that. I have a motion and a second. Any last chance for questions? All right, we're going to run down our roll call here. Bonnie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Paula,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
and I am a yes, so that is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us tonight.
Did you see how easy that was?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Have a good night. Good night. Thank you.
And could we go on to, we have the school department, Joe Bietta, and I know Matt Wells is on. So if we could go on to the budget supplements and then capital so that they could move on after that.
That sounds fabulous.
And before we do that, let me just, I'm going to try and share my screen again. Bear with me. Be patient, Joe.
Coffee's on you tomorrow.
Oh, that's right, I never got that. All right. So I just wanted to show you the revenue, the estimated operating revenues and expenditures. So if you look at this, you'll see the third line down, these assessors are still working on the new growth, and we have lowered that. We were originally at the 745, but we have lowered that. So I just wanted to let you know that. And then one of the questions we were waiting on, and we got the answer, was on the meals tax. And the meals tax came in at 50,000, and last year for the same period it was 72,000. But in our revenue projections, we projected 160,000, so we should be good with what we've estimated. For the meals tax, we shouldn't have to lower that anymore. Hopefully we're going to be above it. Hopefully we come in at 200,000 or better, because 50 was the first quarter. Yeah. Any questions on that sheet? Let me find the budget supplements. I'm still here, I didn't go anywhere.
Is it just this one pager that Michelle sent us?
It is.
You want me to share it?
I think I got it.
Okay.
So,
There it is.
so Joe, if you want to talk first, one of the things, well, before that, I just wanted to say that, we've We've tried to be conservative on what we're putting into budgets now, and we're looking to hold on to free cash, and we know there's a good possibility. We don't know what's going to happen, especially in the schools, and we may have to come back in May, but right now we're trying to be conservative. So, Joe, if you just want to go through the schools first.
Yeah, so thanks to all of you and good evening. So in general, what happened was the school committee, myself and Matt, who else my business manager, we got together and looked at where our negatives were, which included over $227,000 in staffing issues, $108,000 in climbing and lost revenue, cleaning increases for both transportation companies, one at $40,000 and the other one at just under $21,000. A rate increase of 23% in special education transportation of $187,000, and then an increase with the local transportation of $48,000. All of it, everybody in the same economic bombshell, if you will, of trying to figure out their own staffing and their own issues. And we had a $775,775 request. At this time, working with James, Mike, and Matt, and myself, we're requesting $330,250 to specifically pay for the therapy and counseling services of $143,250, which is contract services, and the $187 van pool rate increase. So for the $330,250, we currently have 21 teachers and staff on family medical leave or FCCRA leave. Family medical leave is based upon their own medical conditions related to diagnoses that fit within the high-risk COVID-19 situation. Those folks are medically documented to be out for the 12 weeks, paid with full benefits, and then it extends beyond there, and I'll tell you why in a second. And then we have FCCRA, which is the child care authorization that came started April 2nd, authorized for the 1st, started on the 2nd, which allows for up to a specific number of salary. We only have 2 people in this. Also for this, the 60 days running no later than 12/31/20 of this year. So we have 325 students who are taking full remote. If you remember, the Commonwealth specifically said the parents had a choice that needed to be provided by the local district of either full remote, hybrid, or full return, and any combination of the hybrid, full remote was also provided. It must be provided as an option. Same thing if it had been full return to school, you'd still have to offer the remote. So we have over 300 students that are in pre-K through 12 plus that were providing that. So we moved those teachers that were in FMLA into being teachers for the students who are full remote, and then had to backfill the teachers who aren't physically in the building for the days or for the Monday through Friday of teaching that takes place. Therefore, servicing the other 2,000 students that are part of the, if you will, the hybrid model. Our hybrid is Monday at home and then either Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, and it continues to change daily. We had 35 changes last week alone of hybrid to remote or remote to hybrid. So it's a pretty fluid, constantly changing situation. We have since already closed 2 classrooms and had over 40 students not in school for 14 days. Matter of fact, they don't return until Monday because of a case that took place on the soccer field. Then we were cautious, overly cautious, and decided, even though the student had been out of the building for more than 48 hours, to close 2 classrooms at the LGN, and then families utilizing our communication with Norton Youth Soccer, getting the names and cross-checking with those families that those students could have been in contact and not returned to school either. So those students are all out, meaning they've moved to partial remote of some way, shape, or form. That's the constant daily headache in terms of switching back and forth, or just complaining, or the actual complaints and the constructive criticism that goes with what's taking place. So there are a number of grants that we've gone after. Every single one of our grants that's coming through the federal government end on the 31st of December. So any utilization of those funds right now is up in the air. myself, town manager James, and Matt are hoping that there's some type of carryover, but right now there is no planned carryover for any of those. And those are for, we're utilizing those for staffing and also utilizing those for the PPEs, the technology, and so on. Working with the town, we've worked about $800,000 worth of all kinds of technology. I think Amy earlier tonight said that you've received a pretty detailed 5 or 6 reports with a pretty long memo from Matt explaining the end of the year, explaining what's happening right now with the grants, estimations that we had to make in backfilling our budget, so on and so forth. So I'm sure we'll be discussing that in the near future with you based on further questions that you may have. So if we look at our budget request, it's $332.50 as written in front of you for the sole purposes of the contractual services requirement and the increase in the special education transportation. So those are the 2 lines we're going after. We continue to try to work with the cleaning companies around the issue, with the transportation companies around the issue of cleaning. All buses have to be cleaned, sprayed down between every single ride that takes place. So they pick up at the LGN, then they have to do the cleaning, then they can go pick up the L, and so on and so on and so forth. Actually, they start with the high school. If we were to look at, I froze the budget on the 22nd of this month. That's the earliest in my almost 13 years as a superintendent. We completely froze the budget. We have utilizing the 775 in front of you that we requested, only getting the 332.50. We have about another 200,000 in all kinds of freezing that we've done right now, leaving us with a potential spring deficit of 245. The reason why we're being conservative in our request and working with the town leaders is because A, we don't know what the PPEs are going to be for January to June. B, we don't know what the staffing situation is. If tomorrow morning I go full remote, which would probably make Amy go crazy, we will, myself as well, Amy, as a dad, we would probably have some further savings in other areas. For example, if there's a remote Monday and the teacher isn't in, we don't bring in a substitute that day. It causes some headaches. But it is what it is. The idea of bringing in a person from one day from remote doesn't make any sense, and we're asking our staff to support that. The only other big question marks in the air for the rest of the year, besides what happens to PPEs after the 1st or after the 31st of December, is I currently have already for January, February, March, and April 6 maternity leaves. None of them, if you really think about it, budgeted, and I'll tell you why. These leaves are all going to start a lot sooner. The COVID list under the CDC speaks specifically about pregnancy, and what we're going to see is Family Medical Leave Act of 12 weeks under their contract probably being expanded 16, 22, 24 weeks. So taking the 12 weeks for after birth, we're seeing this request coming in for as much as potentially 24 weeks for leaving 12 weeks before birth of 3 months. All medically documented, by the way, not a whole lot that we can do about it. And without being overly sarcastic or inappropriate, we anticipate more because we had a lot of people home from March through June. So there could be a climb in the birth rate, and I say that respectfully, as happens in these types of situations in history. That's all I got tonight so far.
All right. Do people have questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Zach.
Dr. Baeva, just on the PPEs, you said you don't know what that's going to be.
Yeah.
Just can you elaborate on that? Because
Sure.
I sent my kid to school. He's got his own mask. I assume the teachers get their own mask. Where is the utilization being used in the school?
Yeah, so you'll get in that detailed report that Amy and Steve have that I believe is going to be forwarded to the rest of the committee. I'll just go through some of it as examples. We had PPEs, everything from signage, filters, masks, scrubs, cleaning and disinfecting, air purifiers at a higher level for each of the schools, of the M13s, for example, cleaning supplies above and beyond our regular, because we have to show in any of these money requests above and beyond our regular budget. So we can't just backfill a budget because when we get audited, we'll get killed on the other side. And then we had for example, one that we did right towards the end of August into September, which was the air purifiers. We had $17,000 worth of air purifiers for classrooms and our offices that do not have windows and proper ventilation. We are required by the DESE to have masks available to students. As you know, Zach, we've pushed that people should bring their own. People who are returning to school from actually a positive case, those are cases where doctors are actually requesting, not requiring, that we have a daily mask available to that child or staff member, and multiple of them, because they are returning back from being out sick, as one example. And then we have the hardware costs that are part of this as well, in terms of ordering. The more technology we have to order, the more software we have to order in order to prepare for September, which also came out of all of those grants.
Okay, so where I mentioned this when you say PPE, personal protective equipment, I thought that money was just masks and gloves, but you're encompassing everything under that.
Yeah, and we can provide you in the list that you'll get. It talks about things like masks. It talks about scrubs. It talks about the face visors. It talks about the plastic dividers. It talks about gloves. All of those things we've broken up into individual line items, and we can provide even more detail if you'd like.
Thank you, Joe.
Sure. And we ordered, Zach, just for you and the committee, we ordered enough for ourselves to be in the safe zone, plus working with Fire Chief Simmons, thanks to him, getting us some extra, the N95s or whatever they're called, for our nurses and principals when dealing with a positive case in school, because they're going to be the two people that are potentially most susceptible to a situation when we're moving a student into the safe area to then go into either home or the hospital, depending on the situation.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Dr. Baird, can you just go a little bit more detail on the rate increase for the van pool and transportation in general, where we stand?
Yeah, so Van Pool increased their transportation by 23% to us, based upon us trying to make an argument last year that we shouldn't be paying them for services delivered. We're in a binding contract with FICO with, I believe it's 11 other communities, which, by the way, we've already said we will no longer be part of that contract. In response, Van Pool increased us by the 23%, or the $187,000 that is part of that request. It's the same runs. So here's the kicker. If a bus company tomorrow morning, let's say tomorrow morning we go to full remote, everybody, there's no more busing. Their contracts by state statute have this wonderful language that talks about services and defines services in some of the contracts, i.e. the Van Pool contract, that if they're ready to go, even if they're not picking up a single student or dropping off a single student, their contract is still in play. And so what they did with us, after I was very vehement about not paying it under, Matt's on the call, he can tell you the chapter, I forget the chapter and what it is now. We basically, working with the town, said we're not going to be paying for a bill if we're not delivering services. So our two options were being sued or paying the bill. In talking to legal counsel, we're paying the bill is what to do in order to be able to get that service. FICO right now is one of our collaboratives. I was one of 4 votes against paying the bill, and I lost the fight at the end of the day.
Just to follow, how many years left on the contract?
It's August 21, so they've been notified that we will not be part. Both FICO and Van Pool have been notified that we're no longer part of that contract. So we'll go, Rick, to your question, we'll go out and search. What happens with the collaboratives is when you take all of the communities that are in a collaborative, in this case 19 towns, and you're able to bring one vendor in to do transportation, you're going to see a cost positive, if you will, to all of the communities. In this particular case, there were situations and deals done in the background that we felt were not in the best interest in the town of Norton. And we stand by that. I spoke with Mike about this. We spoke to council about it. And because of the way the language of the contract was put together, it wasn't favorable to us. And so we're paying the bill, but as an increase, as you can see.
Just one last question on that. Is there an early termination clause that you can get out with a penalty?
We cannot. Again, it plays off, for example, today, without getting into too much of it, today there was a meeting because for 10 days, every single one of us as part of this contract did not deliver students to school for the first 10 days of school, if you remember. So what kind of benefit are we going to get for those 10 days? The numbers that they're using is, well, you still owe us 78%. Well, that seems ridiculous for a service that's not been delivered. No child was picked up. No child was dropped off. No bus company was asked to do anything. So that's what we stand by. You guys all know my feelings about transportation because we bid this stuff out, and the only thing that you get is one bid. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
More questions?
Just as a positive I can, Amy, the only positive that really has come from this, when you look at our budget, is that we were able to move some of the people we had unemployed back into employment, therefore eliminating unemployment. And that was simply because when we had an FMLA situation, we were able to recall that teacher back to backfill, allow for the FMLA situation to become the remote, thereby dropping and working with the town, specifically with the town treasurer. We've had a lot of questions going on about, the inappropriateness of filing for stuff, and thanks to her work, we've been able to really work together through her work. Really, we're just checking it off. For example, Wade Lazant was claimed as unemployed. Wade's our director of facilities. I can assure you he's not unemployed. But those types of situations, thanks to the treasurer's office, have been handled, and hopefully are long-term going to be a benefit.
Madam Chair?
Good news? Yes, go ahead.
Joe, on the unemployment, I don't know how it works with municipalities, but a few employees that I had to lay off in my own business, the CARES Act waived the fee for laying them off. That was, when they get the statement, it's zeroed up, just CARES Act. So you are not penalized for laying off people due to COVID-related issues, at least for this year. I don't know if that's different for municipalities, but I kind of find that out by accident, personally.
I can answer that, Madam Chairman.
Go right ahead.
Private employers pay a tax. We don't pay a tax.
Okay.
We fully fund our employment, and if we could go on to that line, we're looking to add 50,000. We don't know if we're going to need all that. We're hoping we don't, but because right now, as Joe said, we are getting hammered with fake unemployment claims.
Right.
And we are constantly fighting with them, trying to get credits back. It's an ongoing battle the treasurer is having with them. We had one that came in on this statement of $9,000. And we're also hit, and I'm sure Zach knows, and it was one of the most frustrating things when I had my own business, it's people that leave Norton and go and work somewhere else and then get laid off there because they don't have enough quarters. Then we get stuck paying the unemployment because the new employer doesn't have enough, they don't have enough quarters working there in order to qualify for their unemployment. So it's frustrating. It's a frustrating system, and that's an account that is running short, and hopefully we don't use that and it's available for free cash, but we're looking for 50,000 there. The other items on there, if I can go through, The treasurer's salary, that was a miscalculation when they were calculating their budget and missed a stipend that was in their department. Data processing, the 11,650, is because of COVID and the amount of technology that's involved with everything we're doing. Charlene is having to work more hours, more than the 20 hours that she would be working. She's working, the 40 hours a week right now to keep us going. Conservation, the $550, that is, we've had concerns raised by a lot of people that about the reservoir and Winnicott, and as we have cleaned the lakes, more and more people are using them, and they want us to post signs with all the regulations. We have been putting out laminated signs which just don't stand up, so this would allow the Conservation Commission to purchase 10 signs to put around that would have all the rules and regulations for the water bodies. The next item is police overtime. It was cut from the chief's request back in May by $55,000, and I have spoken to the chief, and we're trying to be conservative, as I said, and we're recommending $30,000, and hopefully that will get the chief through. Obviously, if he has any incidents that add on to the overtime, he may have to come back in May for funding. The fire is the expenses that were cut in May, and same with the emergency medical, the $500. Any questions on any of those? The last is communications. We had expected to be in the new communications center now, but issues that they've had dealing through construction with COVID and delays in delivery of equipment, it looks like it's not going to be until December 8th now. So because we're not in there when we thought we were going to be in there, our assessment we have money available under that line item, which is 0012905605660 is for our assessment, and we're now looking to transfer that to salaries to pay our communications people until we move in December.
Mike, are they feeling confident about this December date, or is this, obviously no one could have foreseen when we were talking about the budget 6 months ago that this was all going to go the way it has, but this is not the first time that we've been delayed on this.
Okay. I know the police chief's on, and maybe he can speak to it, but I know they're switching over. They plan on switching everything over on December 8th. Brian, do you have anything to add on that?
Just that the budget was done to September 1st. On September 1st, the SEMREC is actually answering our 911 calls, so we did start a transfer of some jobs to SEMREC. So when you call 911, it goes directly to SEMREC now, and then is transferred to a dispatcher here to be dispatched. I think there's a SEMREC meeting next week, next Tuesday, and we'll probably know a little bit more then. I know one of the issues that they ran into was a supply chain issue with the HVAC system. They can't, you can't move in there with all the computer equipment and everything else without an HVAC system. It would just overheat.
One of the things at the meeting next week, we went out to bond the construction, and the interest rate was 0.55.
Wow. can we borrow and how fast? Does anyone else have any additional questions on the operating budget supplement? Sounds like no.
Chairwoman,
Bill?
can I just ask on the unemployment, how many people have we laid off due to COVID, or do we think we're about to lay off?
I know at the town, only one. I'm not sure if there's been any in the schools.
We had originally, if I remember correctly, I don't have it in front of me, but based on getting to a balanced budget at 2.5%, we originally had 3 teachers. Then we had an announced retirement in June, backfilled that person from having to be laid off in the same department, but did not fill the new. So we actually absorbed 3 cuts at the middle school, but we brought those people back from being laid off based on people retiring or FMLA.
One of the frustrating things is that, believe it or not, and we're trying to fight these, and I don't know if we're going to be successful. We have people that have retired and have gotten jobs, and then they got laid off from those jobs, and now we're paying their unemployment.
So it's more of, I don't want to say fraud per se, but it's more that type of issue versus actually, internally laying off people and increasing our expense.
Correct.
Bill, if I may add to that through you, Mike, I'll give you a scenario from the school department. As somebody who retires a few years ago, then works for us as like a tutor, and then if they're laid off, if they don't have a job as a tutor, then they claim unemployment for that. And right now, the feds and the state are letting them.
Sweet deal.
Well, in the old days, when you were a daily substitute, you couldn't file for unemployment, and now every single time they go after that.
Well, and the $600 extra was quite an incentive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any further questions on budget supplements? All right. Mike, did you want us to vote this tonight?
I would hope, yeah.
All right. Then do we need to vote it line by line?
Yes, and so as you vote, all the top will be coming from free cash, and then the bottom for the communications is just the transfer from expense to salaries.
Okay. All right, who's going to do the fun part and make all the motions?
I'll give this a whirl, Madam Chair.
All right, Aaron, it's all you.
All right, I'd like to make a motion in Article 4 to move $2,000 from free cash to account 001-147-510, treasurer.
Second.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Kevin.
Before we do that, can we just make a motion to accept them all as presented, rather than having to vote on each one?
Unfortunately, because we're putting money in separate accounts, we have to vote them all separately.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Since Aaron started, could Aaron just read them all
I'd be glad to.
and then vote it that way?
If that's an okay way to do it, I'm happy to do it that way.
All
That'd be-
right, let's.
All right, here we go. In Article 4, I make a motion to move $2,000 to account 001-147-510, treasurer. to move $11,650 to account 001-155-510, data processing. To move $550 to account 001-171-570, conservation. To move $30,000 to account 001-210-510, police. To move $3,500 to account 001-220-50, fire department. To move $500 to account 001-230-570, emergency medical. To move $330,250 to account 001-300, school department. And to move $50,000 to account 001-911-570, unemployment, all from free cash. For a total of $428,450.
Thank you, Aaron, and thank you, Bill. I have a motion and a second to move $428,450 from free cash into these various departments' budget supplements. Is there any further questions or discussion? All right, before we vote, let's do the last one. Mike, just to clarify, where is this money coming from?
So you're transferring $211,935 from line 001-290-560-5660 to the 001-290-510 salaries.
Madam Chair?
Aaron?
Mike, what is 5660 from communications?
That is our assessment. It's an expense line, our assessment to SEMREC.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Madam Chair?
Yes, Aaron.
I'd like to make a motion. I'm sorry, Mike, this is also from free cash. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Never mind. I'd like to make a motion to transfer the amount of $211,935 from communications 001-290-560-5660 to communications -001-290-510 communications salaries.
Second.
All right. So we have motions and seconds to move all of these things. Is there any additional questions out there in Zoom land? All right, hearing none, we will go to the vote. Bonnie?
Could Aaron just reread them real quick? Just gonna guess.
Good man.
Bill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Hvac?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes. No.
Kevin?
Yes.
Paula? Yes. Aaron?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so that is unanimous. Well, that was fun. What's next?
Could we do
Thank you.
Could we do the capital plan?
Sure, why not?
And so capital met Monday night, and capital was also being cautious about what we spend money on, because normally we put $900,000 into our capital account in the fall, and which would have been nice to do this year, but we really want to hold on to that money just as a cushion. So here is the recommendations from the capital committee. The first item is under conservation. This is $25,400, and this is for improvements to the pavilion at Camp Edith Reed, and also installing security cameras. If any of you have been into that pavilion, it's just a cathedral-type ceiling, open way up to the ceiling. And we just had the heater replaced recently. And we're trying to rent this building out for use. I know Alnylam actually already asked about renting it out. And we want to put a ceiling in lower, so we're not using as much heat. It just goes right up through that ceiling, right through that roof right now. So that's what part of that work is for. And then the security cameras, but also there'll be insulation, and then security cameras, because they have had, not in a while, but there were a couple break-ins in there previously. The next request from the police department, $80,000. This is for a motorcycle and another cruiser. The police department had requested all of these in the spring, and we provided them with one vehicle, one line cruiser in the spring, and this would provide another line cruiser for $60,000 and a motorcycle for $20,000. They have a cycle right now, and this would replace that, and that would be sold. Also at the police station, one of the things as communications moves over to Hvac, will be that area will be available to be remodeled at the police station, and this $10,000 would be used as part of that process to plan out the remodeling. Also, HVAC, this would be they were provided money to replace a unit in the spring at $11,000. It's come in a little higher than that, so this would provide money to replace that first unit that they were provided money for in the spring and a second unit. And then the next item is apparatus pay efficiency improvements at the fire department. So this would replace the front doors in the apparatus bay, and also do some energy improvements with sensor lights and fans to hold the heat down. There's a heater under that floor, and in the winter when that's on, the heat just rises up, and they'll have the windows open upstairs because all the heat is escaping. And this will help us also with our Green Communities program, where we're having, we have a consultant from National Grid that will be coming out to help us with that, to see if we can get some of that money through grants.
Chair?
Mike.
Yeah, Mike, I just to go back to the police and the additional line cruiser, that's an additional cruiser that's not replacing anything?
No, it'll be replacing a cruiser that will be put on municipal.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Sorry about that.
Madam Chair,
Bonnie.
through you. Mike, for the police station remodel, looks like $35,000 was requested in the spring, but only 10 is approved for now or recommended for now. Is that just for phase 1, or is the 35 for phase 1?
Chief?
Hello. So the 10,000 is basically the capital minimum that will create some seed money to get started to dismantle some of the equipment that's there to make the room usable. If we don't get anything now, we really won't be able to use it until well after the May town meeting next year. So it's just providing a little bit of seed money. And it really was just reduced because of the situation we're in right now, just to have some care about the amount of money that we're asking for.
Will it be offices?
It is going to be a roll call / day room. So if you're always welcome to come over to the police department and have a tour, but our roll call room is tiny, and since COVID hit, we can't actually use it. You can't social distance in there. It's just too small. So we've been doing some roll calls at the front desk, at the training room, or even outside, and this will give us some space for a greater roll call room.
I brought my kids by a long time ago, so I might be in need of an update. The other question I had, Madam Chair, is for Mike as well about the HVAC unit replacement. 22,000 was requested in the spring, and 11,000 was recommended and voted. But now it's another 20,000. Can you just explain that? Maybe you did.
I can explain that.
Oh, sure. Thanks.
So basically, several years ago, say 2012, to replace all units was about $66,000 or so. So we've been having a double of a time getting quotes. So basically, I took that amount and divided it by 6 units and came out with $11,000. So one unit was approved. That's what the $11,000 was. That was approved. The problem was that we didn't have any newer quotes. So when we got the newer quotes, which just came in the last week, the quotes are about $15,000 a unit. So this is for what would be a third unit, and the difference for the $11,000 from the spring unit. They really weren't doing much work at the time. They weren't coming out to inspect or give quotes. So we're kind of behind the times. But the units, they're really kind of on a shoestring right now. They're ready to break. The units are over 20 years old, and they're at a 10-year life expectancy.
Great, thank you.
Before I move on to the schools, I don't think I mentioned on the apparatus bay, the funding for that will be split 50-50. It's $35,000 from capital and $35,000 from the ambulance account. And then the schools, at the middle school, they have a need to replace the hot water tanks. They're leaking and getting ready to fail, and I don't know if Joe wants to talk more on that. That's $86,000.
Thank you, Mike. We had a capital itemization that went forward for 330, 3600. Working again with Mike and with James and Matt, we are moving up our emergency issue of the hot water tanks at the middle school at 86,600, thereby not requesting the 247,000 left. We'll decide that later.
Madam Chair.
Zach.
Joe, question for you. Pre-COVID, I'm not sure if it was at town meeting or if it was at our school committee meeting, but I had asked you what your number one concern was in regards to capital. And you had told me the boiler at the Yale School.
Right.
I should have asked you the other day at the Yale meeting, but
it's okay.
How's the boiler doing?
So the boiler is doing. What I see with that is the potential of, especially as Mike and I have had another discussion about that 0.55 long-term interest on capital items. The potential is that any type of situation with the boiler, we would want to probably work with the MSBA, because that building would also probably have to include all renewed piping, because don't forget that also has steam in it. So we're band-aiding it every day as we can, and hoping that we can get to that point where we'll be on an MSBA list and we can take a look at that low interest loan going forward as we prioritize the capital needs of the town.
But you're confident we'll make it through the winter?
Well, you're putting me on the spot, so I guess I'll say yes. We feel comfortable with it. The biggest issue that happens with the building and the boiler is actually the piping that takes place and the forcing of the hot water, and the pipes are just, they're in their original parts of the building. So they're just getting more rotted out. And so every year we're spending a few thousand, as much as $10,000, $12,000, bringing in the outside plumber to really repipe parts of it when it leaks. But it's definitely running. It was running the other day. We've already checked it out. It's past inspection. That's the most important part.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Zach.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Rick.
just go back to Chief Clark. Is there, do you have with the HVAC equipment, is there a warranty, or more importantly, is there a service plan tied to that? Preventive maintenance?
We do preventative maintenance in the spring and the fall. A service plan, not particularly. And the warranty, I personally think they were old when they were installed 20 years ago. I don't think they were brand new, that's just my personal opinion. They're 20 years old, they're 10 years past life. When they've come to service them, they've just said they desperately need to be replaced.
Yeah.
It'd be good.
I agree. Just that when, boilers, HVAC equipment, maintenance is a critical, annual maintenance is a critical part of keeping the most efficient part of a product running long term. So.
Yeah, it's definitely very costly. It's been very costly for these units in the past, 5 to 10 years. As you know, we don't have a maintenance person on the town side of things to do it, so it is very costly.
Thank you.
The last item is under the highway department. Originally, Keith was looking for a dump truck, but then he had a greater need for a John Deere utility tractor with a boom mower. He just said this year, trying to keep up with the mowing was just tough. They couldn't do it, and so this will be a larger mower that will help with that. And this would be over 4 years. This would be payment 1 of $34,412. And the total on the plan, so coming out of capital, $291,412. Out of ambulance reserve, $35,000, and the total for the plan is $326,412. And if I could talk also, while we're talking capital, about funding this. Right now in capital, we have $330,891. And if you add up all the payments we'll be committed to next year, we want to leave that money in there. It almost equals it's slightly short of what we need for all those payments. And we would like to fund this program by adding $291,412 into the capital account.
$291,400.
$291,412.
412. Nice round number. Got it.
Madam Chair?
Mike.
Mike, would that be coming from free cash? Or the 291,412?
It would come from free cash.
Okay.
So that would be capital improvement funding is Article 7.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could vote to, I'd recommend that $291,412 from free cash be put into the capital account.
All right.
Madam Chairwoman?
Bill?
Mike, because I don't keep a running tally, what is free cash after that?
Okay, let's see.
Oh, there's a chart.
I do have it here. Let me stop sharing for a second and go to it.
Madam Chair?
Keith?
Mike, while you're doing that, you also need to move the 35 ambulance in at the same time, or is that a different?
No, well, you'd vote to, for the first article, to add $291,412 to the capital improvement account. And then in the next article, when you vote for the capital plan, you would have to recommend that $291,412 come from capital improvement fund and $35,000 come from the ambulance.
Thank you.
All right. I don't know why I can't get it to come up, but. All right. Just to give you an idea, just a rough, so certified free cash is $2,877,433. I'm recommending that we hold $200,000 for snow and ice, $700,000 for the FY22 budget. The operating budget amendments that you approved is $428,450. If you approve capital, that's $291,412. Household hazardous waste would be $10,000. If you approve the boat water body access master plan, that would be $19,610. And if you put money into OPEB, that of $100,000. So with that said, you'd still have $1,227,961 left remaining in free cash. So with the 900, we're at $2 million in free cash that we'd be holding.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Zach?
Mike, how much money is in the stabilization fund currently?
Let me see if I have that. Hold on.
Well, Mike is looking for that. The question that I have is, the money that we hold for next year's budget, is there a reason that we just kind of like hold it to the side and we don't put it in stabilization or reserves or any of those other funds? It's just kind of hanging out there?
The only reason for that is if you put it in stabilization, then it's going to require a 2/3 vote to take it out. And if you hold it as free cash, it's just a simple majority vote to use it for the budget.
Okay.
Madam Chairwoman, I would also add that in the world of municipal bonding and bond ratings, taking it out will always reflect perhaps a little negatively. So
They think we're poor planners.
Yes, so.
Nothing could be further from the truth. Madam Chair, to answer Zach's question, so in stabilization we have $2,108,135.
And is that seems low. What has it been running over the last 5 years?
Well, we've been doing a good job of building it up, but because of what happened this year, we had to use some of the stabilization for the budget itself.
All right. Do we have any additional questions before we move to Article 7? All right. I will entertain a motion to move $291,412 from free cash into the capital improvement fund.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Aaron?
Mike, can this just be presented as Article 7 as written, or do I need to enunciate the numbers as Amy just did?
You have to announce the number.
Okay, Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to move $291,412 from free cash to the capital improvements fund.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we will vote. Bonnie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Paula? Yes. Aaron?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so that is unanimous.
Thank you. In Article 8 is the capital plan amendment. And as we said, that motion would have the two funding sources.
All right. Let's see. Mike, could you throw it back up on the screen so we can just see the numbers?
Yep.
Because I'm not going to remember what they were. I mean, if somebody else out there wants to make a motion and remembers what they were.
I can tell you if you want. Okay, that's the wrong one. That's not it.
Madam Chairwoman, I'll give a go of this, that
Okay.
we recommend approval of the, capital, plan totaling $326,412, 35,000 of which comes from the ambulance reserve fund, and $291,412 comes from capital.
Correct.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we will go to the vote. Bonnie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes?
Mike?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Paula? Aaron?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so that is also unanimous. All right.
If we could, I know we have people on that interested in certain certain items, so could we skip around?
Sure.
So I believe we have people on about the water bodies management project. And so if we could go to that. And I did share information with the chairman. I don't know if you have that or not. But we did reach out to our bond counsel, and they suggested that we could do bands, which are borrowing anticipation that are coming at 1%. So if if we funded the 3-year plan at $622,380, over 10 years each year, the payment would be $62,238. And we could pay it off at any time if we have funds available. We could pay it off. We don't have to wait the full 10 years. So the interest is only $6,223.80. And that would be a way of guaranteeing that there's funds available to continue the program. The program started in 2014. There was $800,000 appropriated, which was going to be a 3-year plan, and that money did last. It spread out over the 6 years because it was October 2014, and it would be the same here. Hopefully, this money could spread out more than 3 years, keep the program going even longer. So. I don't know if anyone from the water bodies is on and would like to speak to it.
Brian Brady, Water Bodies Committee. My only thing with this is we started treating the lakes and after permitting and everything else, officially really started treating the lakes in 2017. Between 2017 and 2019, on Winnicott, variable milfoil, we had a reduction of 100 acres. There's 140 acres on the lake, and we had a reduction in plant right for 100 acres in that time. Also, we had a reduction in fan worth of 31 acres. The reservoir, in that same period of time, between 2017 and 2019, the fan worth reduction was 190 acres. And the variable milfoil was much larger, was 368 acres, the reduction. We've had some regrowth since then. 2019, we did not treat Winnicott at all. We only treated the reservoir and Charlie Pond. This year we treated, we haven't gotten the reports yet. A lot of that money does also go to the mapping, the final reports. The SS has to complete the reports. And they do a pre-treatment survey and a post-treatment survey, along with permitting. On Winnicott, again, you have to go through the state natural heritage. They have to approve every year, annually. And again, permits come up to be renewed. The reservoir, we also have to deal with Mansfield conservation, too. And I think the funding has been very productive with everything that's been treated, and we've had some growth back this year. I don't know whether it has to do with the mild winter and also the low water levels, but we'll probably get a better idea of that once we get our reports back at the end of October, whenever, from ESS.
And
go ahead, Rick. Oh, you're on mute, Rick.
My apologies. Thanks, Andy. Brian, is there a point where chemicals year over year? Is it? Does that eventually come to a point where you're harming the water body, or was there a plan to maybe get back into the harvesting side of things?
No, there'll never be. I don't think there'll ever be a harvesting thing. That's really counterproductive. The harvester not only harvests the milfoil and the harmful plants, but it cuts a path through all the good plants that we have that normally are natural to the water bodies. And that becomes, once you mow them down, it allows that fanwort and milfoil to take over.
Just to follow up, the chemicals eventually, I mean, if you're doing it year after year, is there any downside?
Not that I know of. They've been treating these for years this way.
No algae buildup or anything like that?
They take samples during the year. That's part of ESS's sample taking. I know there was some concerns with algae blooms, with the low water levels and things like that, whether they were harmful or not. And I know they took samples this year and everything come back okay.
How's the fishing stock?
Fishing's great. Fishing's great. Everybody says it's great. It hasn't really affected the fish at all. Largemouth bass and in the lakes, and they're bigger than ever.
Great. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know, Madam Chair, if I could, on Winnicott, the state had dive teams out there doing practice, and they had a robot that they put out under the water, and I asked him if it was seeing any weeds, and he said there's no weeds at all in this pond. So if you remember, before the program started, the surface of Winnicott was green. I mean, there'd be a little dot that was clear in the middle of the lake, but the rest was just green. And I know when the selectmen instituted this program, their concern was that the funding wouldn't continue, and then you'd have a year where you don't treat, and it would be twice as expensive to get everything back again.
So I guess that was actually a great lead into the question that I have, which is this something that we're going to be paying multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars for every year indefinitely? I think everyone here probably enjoys the fact that we have these beautiful water bodies available to the community. Just trying to set expectations that this may be a permanent, ongoing expense.
Ryan?
Yeah. What I would say is that it should be a reduction every year. Maintain it. Our hopes are that we get to a point where hand pulling and some diver assist stuff could enter into the thing more than having to do these types of treatments that we're doing now. There's also some other new chemicals that are out there that, if we had approval, which were recommended last year through ESS, would be more sustaining for a longer period of time, and they're easier to apply, let's just say it that way, and probably a little more cost effective. Right now, we haven't got the approval on that. Down the road, there's probably always going to be some type of pushback on weeds. Last year, like I said, on Winnicott, we went a whole year without treating it. This year, we had to treat it. So you may have those years where you can go without treating the reservoir, you can go out treating Winnicott, maybe alternate back and forth. Chatley Pond, the same thing. New invasive plants have propped up, let's say in Chatley Pond. We were dealing with water chestnuts, and now they got fanwort and a couple other things, so they have to change their order of conditions. So again, you're applying for more permits and doing that. So there's going to be costs that way. And the permits are only good for so many years. So 2 or 3 years, plus, like I said, with the state, it's every year for Winnicott. But hopefully with some of the signage and things we get out there where people launch boats, we get the message out, make sure your boats are clean. It's illegal to, take plants from one body of water into another body of water, but it's difficult to police things like that. So if somebody has a boatman infested lake somewhere and they come right over and they drop it in our lake, they can, create a small batch of that plant in there, and we'll have to handle it.
All right. Vice Chair, if I can ask a question. Are there any grants out there, state grants that we could get from conservation that could help pay for this management program? Has that ever been pursued?
I think it has, but most of the grants that are out there are for stormwater management, and it's more of a long-term type deal. I think, Jennifer does pursue those, and I know Highway Department pursues a lot of that stuff for stormwater management.
I saw Jennifer jump up when you asked that question.
I just signed in. I don't know what the question is.
Oh, I thought you were getting ready to talk on it.
I was in the master plan meeting. It just ended, so I'm sorry. I don't know what the question was.
The question, they're asking Brian Brady if there's any grants available for treating the ponds.
You're on mute.
Yeah, nothing substantial that I know about. Yeah, we keep looking for them, but trust me, if there was one, I would have applied for it already.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Zach.
I'm not questioning that this is not needed. Obviously it is. It's a benefit, obviously, from what I hear. But I do have a problem with the financing of it. I mean, to me, these are maintenance issues that are year to year, and it's going to be there forever in one some form or another. But it's the equivalent of taking a mortgage to have somebody mow your lawn. If we don't have the money to do it, then we can't do it. I'm not in favor of borrowing money long term for yearly maintenance issues. It's my view.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Bill.
So, Mike, I know I asked this either Monday or last week when this popped up at one of those meetings, in that, when this was originally presented to us, I'm going to say about 5 years ago, and the cost was at $800,000, whatever. And we're like, okay, didn't love the price tag, but we're like, yeah, we got to do it. We have these bodies of water, and I'd like to get them clean and useful for the town. But then in that presentation, the maintenance after the initial scrub, for lack of a better word, of these bodies was to be a lot less. And I know I asked the other day, is there a way to get back to that presentation to kind of bring us to what that less was supposed to be, because it's not there at the moment. And I don't want to start a firestorm or whatever, but I equate this the same way as I equate our inability to cost out certain sewer water projects that go way off plan once we're into it.
Just looking to see if I had anything from the original in 2014, but I don't have that with me.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Zach.
Mike, how long are we, you borrowed $800,000, we're looking for another $600,000. So what is it, $600,000 you're looking for, is that correct? Are my numbers correct here?
Yeah, you're right, 622,380.
So you're looking for, a million four. How long is we borrowing this money out for? Are these 20-year bonds, 10-year bonds?
What we're looking to do on this is $622,380 on 10 years, 1%.
And what did we do on the original 700 or 800,000, whatever it was? Was that 10 years as well?
I will have to look and see if I can find that.
What I'm trying to get at, this is just compounding. 2 years from now, they come back and more debt, and it's just not sustainable. It's not a sustainable model. Either we have the money to do it, or we don't, and apparently we don't.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Brian, what happens if we don't treat the water bodies?
Well, if we let it go, it'll probably revert back to what it was. It may take a few years, but it'll definitely, it's not going to stop growing.
And then what? So what impact on the town could that have?
Well, it's recreational. I mean, it stops all recreational. I mean, basically, Winnicott was a dead pond for years, and it's still alive the last couple of years. You see all kinds of kayaking, recreation, boating, especially this year with everybody being confined to homes with COVID and all that stuff. We've seen a big increase in activity. Basically they turn into swamps, mosquito swamps.
So, it might not be a little far afield of your expertise, but does that improve home values in the town?
It improves the value of the way it is now, yeah. It decreases the value the minute it goes down, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Rick.
Thank you. I'd just like to add to that. I think the town is, in terms of this analogy, is 29 square miles. I don't know what the water body, size is, but let's just say it's 5% of the town. I mean, it's part of the town. It's a positive, and I do see Zach's point in reference to, this is going to be a continued expense year over year, but I just don't think we want to vacate it or abandon this project or continue maintaining the water bodies, even just stopping for a few years and hope revenue comes back and kind of earmark some money towards that. I think it's something that we need continued year over year, and I think it's of value to the town. And I kind of look at it like, maybe there's 4 miles of road in the town that aren't traveled that much, but still part of the town. So that needs to be maintained. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. I see Jennifer has raised her hand, which is a novel new thing for me. So go ahead, Jennifer.
Thanks. I would just add that this does support green jobs, not only with the actual maintenance and management of the pond, but when people are coming into town so that they can kayak and use any of the water bodies or the waterways, they're also having lunch here, they're stopping to get a drink, so it does help support some of our local business.
Madam Chair?
I saw Mike Fiore with a raised hand at the same time I heard Bill Rotundi say my name. So we'll go with Mike first. You're on mute, Mike.
All right, thanks. Going back, I mean, the town did neglect all these water bodies for years and years, and they got into such a state that there was a lot of people who wanted the water bodies improved. I mean, if anyone remembers, this goes back years. They were unusable, and it was kind of, it was just a bad place to even be down near the water. And then people did approve the money, And ultimately, it seems to be the will of what the town wants at this point in the game. That they want these water bodies clean. They want to be able to use them. They want to fish. They want to boat. They want to make use of the natural resources that we have. So it is an expense, but ultimately it's up to the town meeting to decide if it's worth it to them. So far, it seems to be worth it to them. So I would be in favor of recommending money.
All right, Bill, you're up.
I just want to say I'm not against maintaining, the water bodies. And again, when this came up 4 or 5 years ago, whatever, the people on FinCom at the time all pretty much agreed, well, if we're going to start this, then understand you should just maintain it on a go-forward basis. Otherwise, we threw out, $800,000, X number of years ago, and we would have wasted it. So I'm not against, doing this. What I'm against, and what I've always been against, is what seems to be the unplanned, the unprojected cost of, well, we think it's going to be X, and then it's going to go down, and then a couple years later we hear, oh, well, we goofed, it didn't go down, it's going to cost you more. And I think that's irresponsible to just vote yes without ever knowing what are your costs going to be within a certain framework, that there are intangibles that are going to increase it every now and then. So not looking for an exact number, but we don't have any number as to how to maintain this long term. And so, at that point, we're kind of wasting money. So I think we need a little better understanding of what's going to cost you, $600,000 for the next 3 years, and then after that, it should cost you X. Hopefully, X is less than $600,000, because that's what was presented to us so many years ago. Once you start it, this should get easier, not almost the same cost every 3 years.
So I guess the question is then, back to either Jennifer or Brian, do we have the ability to get some sort of an estimate from, is it ESS, the company that we contract with for the chemical treatments? Like, would they be able to tell us that at the end of this current 3-year agreement that we're looking at, we would be on some sort of like a maintenance plan that would be miraculously $5,000 a year? Or are we looking at every year a 6-figure number at least, or multiple 6-figure numbers a year? I think that might be helpful information for this group before we make a decision. I just don't know if it's something that's even available to us.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, along those same lines, you should also then ask for the same cost as if you don't do anything, and then 3 or 5 years down the line, the townspeople come back and say, this is a disgrace, we have to do something about it. How much does it cost then to do something about it? So you're either paying for the maintenance cost of it now, or the debt service on the maintenance cost now, or whatever it is, or you're paying 3 times that in 3 to 5 years. Sorry for the dog.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Zach.
I agree with everything everybody's saying, but nobody yet on this committee has told me how you're going to pay for it without putting it on a credit card. It is an unsustainable model. If you ran your household finances like that, or your business, you would either be out of business and you would be bankrupt. It's not. If it's so desperate to the town, then you need to make cuts elsewhere to pay for this. You just cannot say, okay, we need it, put it on the credit card. Next year, we need it again, put it on the credit card. It's unsustainable. It's, completely irresponsible, to be honest with you. If that's what this committee wants to vote for, it's just putting stuff on the credit card forever. It just makes no sense to me whatsoever. I'm not disputing what everybody's saying, but this is not a one-time expense. This is going on forever. You will need it 10 years from now.
I saw Rick with a hand up.
I was going to say, well, to Amy's point, I think you're trying to get a forecast of what the expense will be in 3 years or 5 years. That's why I did bring up the point of harvesting, and kind of more of a balance, get less chemicals and more another approach. So maybe that cost is lower. But I just think of thinking that we, just because your point is that right now it's a borrowing action, and but I just don't. I think we'd be going backwards. I think we'd be going backwards, and I think a lot of times we have done that, where we just got to move forward.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Zach.
Just to respond to that. 5 years ago, you didn't have the money, you borrowed $800,000. 5 years later, you still don't have the money, you're borrowing $600,000. 5 more years from now, nothing's going to change. If it's so critically important to the town, then make the necessary cuts in other departments to pay for it, is all I'm saying. Putting it on the credit card is not a sustainable model in any rational fashion, municipality, business, or personal. I rest my case.
Thanks, Zach. Go ahead, Mike.
I'd agree with Zach, but when we're talking about 1%, it's virtually nothing. It's $6,000. I mean,
it's kicking the can down the road, Mike. You're going to make those payments next year, the following year, the following year. Just because somebody gives you free money doesn't mean you still got to pay it back that you don't have.
If anybody's going to give me free money, I'll take it.
So I guess the question is, can we get this information from the vendor? Can we get an outlook for beyond the next 3 years? And the other question is there a rationale for the 3-year contract versus a 5-year contract? Would we be able to get a better deal if we did a 5-year contract? Would we be able to get the next 2 years after the first 3 years that we're going to be that miraculous $5,000? I would love to know some of the answers to these questions before we vote on this issue. If for no other reason, then I think it substantially informs whether we want to borrow this money versus try and find it elsewhere. Because if it's going to become a recurring $200,000 a year issue, then I am much, much less inclined to borrow it to that point, because it does kind of feel like I'm paying my car payment with my credit card.
Madam Chair.
But, yes, Kevin.
But didn't I just hear Mike Unit say that it would be like $6,000 a year, approximately?
not a year.
That's the interest, is the $6,000. But the problem is, if we borrowed $800,000 3 years ago, and then we're going to borrow $600,000 now, and then $600,000 3 years from now, all of a sudden we're paying back all of these incremental charges that have added up to a lot more than what we expected.
Madam Secretary?
Ooh, I got a new title. What's up, Bill?
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
It's one of those days. So, do we have to do it in a 3-year increment? Can we just do a contract for next year? We have free cash. If it's $200,000, take it out of free cash for the next year, and then we can see what the budget is next year and see where we're going from there.
Madam Chair, that is an option, if that's what the committee would prefer.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Peter.
Go ahead, Peter.
So, if the person we are going to get an estimate for the ongoing cost of maintenance going forward, It's the same company that's giving us the results. It's in their best business interest to have the maintenance costs continue forever. I don't think they're ever going to say, hey, you don't have to spend any much more money on this. It's going to be a bigger issue every year. That's just my, I don't know, slated opinion of this. Maybe I'm thinking negative, but, you know, I'd like to get another second opinion on the ESS group. I don't know. When are we going to actually start maintenance? That's the question.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Mike.
I just want to make sure that you know that ESS does not do the treatments. ESS is our consultant.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay. So, to wrap up this conversation that has been much more in-depth than I thought it might be, Jen, do you think we could get that information on, like, the longer-term expenses?
We could ask them. I don't actually deal with them that much. I think Mike might actually talk with them more.
Brian and I can talk to them.
That would be fantastic. All right. Thank you, everyone. Any other commentary on this? All right, fabulous. What's next, Mike?
I know Estelle is on, and you had asked Estelle to come back with some information on the adoption of Mass General Law, Chapter 33, Section 59.
Fabulous. Welcome back, Estelle.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. One of the questions I left with the other night was to see about other towns who may have already adopted Chapter 33, Section 59. I was able to get a reasonable amount, not as many as I wanted, because I think it caused a homework assignment. There are a lot of towns out there that have been paying employees, and they weren't really sure, was that, you know, Chapter 33, or was that under another statute that came about years back? I can say that the city of Lynn, Hingham, Braintree, Marshfield have it and have adopted it. And Foxborough really impressed me because they adopted this back in 1958, a version of it, of course. But because they had it on the books from then, it automatically adopts all the amendments as time goes forward. I spoke with Mansfield, and Mansfield, they did not have it, but they worked through their contracts, union contracts, to provide some dates. Not as current as they should be, in my opinion, but, and I checked with Rehoboth. I kind of tried the bordering towns. They are still operating under the Sailors Act, and I kind of chuckled at that, but at the same time, they do not look at it as a great concern, as he admitted gently that everyone at their town hall was a senior, and would not need it, so at this time, he had no interest in looking into it. I'm still waiting for a response from Easton. He was on vacation, and a few other communities. Raynham currently does not have that. Again, was going to look into exactly what they were providing. It seemed to be more of the census that if you didn't have anyone serving, the town didn't have it. I didn't think that was the best reasoning behind it. I'd like to have gone and been in the same position as Foxborough because of, you know, their foresight to adopt it when they did. It has just increased with time, and probably a lot gentler than going from 17 partially paid days to 40 full paid days, all in one, motion. So that was what I was able to come up with as far as towns participating or having adopted it. Do you have any questions on that piece?
Anybody?
Okay, I'll just move on. The second question, I just wanted to be certain of the history or the intention of this particular chapter and what the purpose was beyond just general, providing benefits for our military employees, town employees. And someone had told me to start with just the name itself, Brave Act. And it stands for Benefits, Rights, Appreciation, Validation, and Enforcement. And this is a means to, I think I tried to emphasize last time, to support those service members who work in our town with a form of support encouragement. The biggest piece or takeaway was, yes, we are providing full pay for 40 days of training, but the chapter also, or section 59, also provides reassurance to employees that when they do deploy, again, not to be confused with the one section about training, that they are entitled to the pay difference to give them greater peace of mind, as they go off to serve our country. So again, I will just reinforce, the training days are there not to be abused, and hopefully it would be a good conversation with department heads to look at how they're being used. Not that you can pull something, once you adopt it, but I don't think, and it was the consensus of those that I spoke with, that this is something that is abused. It's there to help provide them with additional training days, whether it's for mobilization or whether they need additional training days beyond their monthly drills and annual training to go off to school for advancement. If you are on the enlisted side, I don't want to get too much into it, but there are 5 military schools that you go to. Each now have grown to 30-day schools. And in order to further your career or get promoted, those schools are necessary. Granted, that's 5 years out of your career, but in addition to that, just like anybody, you usually don't stop at one bit of education. You might take another school to enhance, your job skill. But in general, for those people who are working a Monday through Friday job, they're going to probably not use those 40 days in full, if at all, some years, because their drills occur on a Saturday and Sunday. They will probably continue to use those 17 days that the town is used to providing for their annual training. The difference being now, it would be at full pay. And at the end of the day, coming from someone who served for 28 years on the reserve side of the house, I feel like it's the right thing to do. And if not now, when? I think Massachusetts leads in veterans benefits, and I think they are going to continue to improve them. And starting with, municipal employees, if they were to improve this much more and we waited for a future date to adopt it, it could be that much more and harder to absorb. Again, out of 447 employees of the town, we're talking about 3 employees. So, right now with the two that are, one being activated, we provide for him now, based on Chapter 137, which was adopted in 2004. We provide for him already paying the difference in his pay. That will be the same with the second individual who will be going off to boot camp and onto his school. Again, paying just the difference. So I think we're looking really at the full pay, and the additional monies really coming from training. I know that it was a concern about, the providing someone to fill the shift, whether it's in the police department. I know that we were concerned about highway and their employees as well being replaced in their absence. And I think Mike was able to speak to highway. I know that when Chief Clark was on last week, he looked at it as $10,000 potentially. And Mike, I think highway gave you something as well.
Hi, Estelle. So basically for the highway, they don't see it, they don't have to fill shifts like the police department does. So they don't see it as a major expense to them. And especially for the National Guard or the reservists that do their weekend, one weekend a month. Obviously, the police could have someone that they'd have to fill a shift on a weekend, but highway is not working on weekends, so it would only be very limited disruption for the highway.
And I think too for highway, whether we pass, Chapter 33, Section 59 or not, you're, as an employer, you're really obligated to, well, you're not obligated. You have to allow them to go and have a job secured back here when they are mobilized or activated. So we were going to have to backfill them or a shift, whether it's 17 days or an additional 23. But for them to pull, one in particular who's deploying leaves on the 2nd, we have to fill that in some capacity. And I think highway was looking at kind of a mixed match of events, I don't know the right word to tell you now. But they were.
I was looking at, they have summer help whose salaries are a lot lower than the person that is working full-time. And so they were going to utilize some of the summer help to fill that time.
And again, that piece of it, I think, was already, on the books to pay the difference. And the town already knowingly accepted that they would maybe be burdened with that someday. And the time right now is now.
Thank you for all of that info, Estelle. Bill, I saw that you had raised your hand. Did you have a question?
I didn't really have a question per se. I was just struck by, they're debating keeping the water clean for, $500,000, or really basically saying thank you to the individuals, male or female, who serve this country to protect this country. And I'm thinking we should just tell Estelle thank you, and we can move on and vote on this, because I think it's a no-brainer to say yes. That's just me.
I appreciate that support.
Rick?
Yeah, I just kind of echo what Bill said. and the big picture things that we discuss and things that come before us. Many articles, and I think this is just one that kind of stands out and gives us as townspeople an opportunity to say thanks, and I think it's just something that makes at least myself, I think, makes myself feel good that we can do and support people who go serve our country in the military.
All right. Are there any other questions about, where are we here? Article 22. All right. Hearing none. Mike, we're going to do this. I will entertain a motion to recommend Article 22 to fall town meeting.
Madam Chairwoman,
Yes, Bill.
I recommend, I recommend Article 22 to accept Chapter 33's Section 59, providing certain military leave benefits to town employees.
A second.
Thank you, Bill and Rick, for the second. Is there any further questions or discussion?
Madam Chair, just one question.
Certainly, Aaron.
Thanks. So what do we expect this to cost us per year? Filling positions and making benefit payments.
The expected cost, I think, out of the police department was $10,000. And Mike, didn't Hvac give you $1? I thought she had handed it off to you. I'm sorry, I didn't get it. I want to say for two of them, I think it was on the high side. Mechanic and, sorry, I don't know the other's position title, but I thought it was $26,000.
Correct, the mechanic and the laborer, yep.
Okay.
So 36,000 a year?
And this particular instance with those, yeah.
Yeah, it'll fluctuate year to year, yeah.
Right.
That's the general neck of the woods.
Mm-hmm. And it will also fluctuate too as, people get promoted, time and grade, they will start to make more, we will, that should close a little.
Right.
How quickly that happens.
We are also currently paying the difference. So then the real question becomes, what's the difference between the difference we're now paying and providing a full salary? That would be less than $36,000.
Yes. Say that again. I'm sorry.
So we're currently paying the difference between we currently make their salary whole, right?
Correct.
So we already have a current expense. We're now going to pay their full salary. So the $36,000 represents their full salary, but it's not the actual increase to the town because we're already making a benefit payment to make them whole.
For a portion of the days.
Right, for a portion of the days. So the question is, what's that number that's less than $36,000, approximately, that will fluctuate per year, that we would, what's the actual increase going to be? If the increase doesn't sound like it would be $36,000, we're already making some payments out.
Yeah, I think it was just to replace them.
If we just knew, what are we paying out now? We could just.
So, one second, looking on the other side, you hate to say, okay, what are we saving? But the person that's being deployed is currently on our health insurance, and while they're deployed, they're on the military health insurance, so they're on health insurance during that time.
So we might be saving more than we're spending.
There'll be some savings there, and it will offset the expense, but I don't think it'll wipe it out.
My only caution with that is, again, this happens to be right now these three individual people, so that isn't a dollar amount, that's set in stone. It could change. We may never come up to this again where we have two going at the same time, one for over 400 days and one probably about 4 to 6 months, depending on school and school delays. So this is probably more unusual than the norm. I'm not sure about that 36,000, exactly what you mean. If my understanding is they budgeted based on someone stepping into the position or covering a shift.
Right.
For 10,000, that was the police.
Right.
So that was just, covering the shift. And I think what Highway was doing was the same, and in some combination.
So what they provided was the added expense, because if the employees had been here fulfilling all of their shifts, we would have paid them for being here. So what we're incurring as an additional expense is simply the backfilling to get those jobs done while people aren't here.
Yes, and that's how I'm understanding it.
And so that's what the 36
it could go up or down. Yeah, it could go up or down.
That's what the 36 is.
Right.
And then what is the increase to the town of paying full salaries instead of making whole salaries?
Oh, paying the difference. Okay. I don't know that. I know, I shouldn't say that. Hold on one second. I did get a breakdown of the what did I do with it? Mine's on my paper here.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Zach.
I think the numbers, it's a moving target. I mean, right now you have 3 people. You could hire, 4 more military folks, and you'd have to cover them, or the 3 could move on to something else. I mean, to get a number, I don't think any number you're going to get is accurate. I just think it's the right thing to do, and I think we should do it.
I can find that number for you, Aaron, after, and I can send it out, if you will, because I know that Joanne and I went to the bother to figure out difference in the day, and I think for one of the individuals it was like we'd pay $83, and the other was $142 to make their pay whole. And again, that's
Madam Chairwoman?
Yes,
There's Bill. So, Aaron, to answer your question, aren't you looking at it the wrong way? If they weren't going to be deployed, we've already budgeted their salary. And under the current plan, we'd be saving money. But now by adopting this, we're kind of going back to, we're paying them their full salary.
Are we saving money when we make them whole when they're deployed?
We only make them whole for 17 days.
For 17.
So if they're deployed for 3 weeks or 3 days a month, and they have shifts over that weekend or whatever it is,
and I do not,
then they're out of time by September.
Right.
So the 40 days piece is equally important to the full salary versus partial salary piece.
yeah, and that's combined. That's why I just wanted to be clear on the 40 days. That's more for like the training purposes versus, the one, say, who's being activated, to the border for 440 days. We're making up the difference in his pay. We did this for a couple of hours today, and it becomes like a circle of who, what, where. But as far as the exact amount, I agree, it's going to be hard to pin until we actually receive their leave earning statement, which basically their pay stub, and everything will be very clear. There'll be no doubt, and we make up the difference. That's one part of the puzzle. And then the other is, depending on whether they get summer help or have to give another highway employee overtime to cover, again, that's going to make a difference in what gets paid out in the end.
Is there any kind of cap to this? For example, if Mike Units joins the reserves, do we have to pay
He'd love to.
full salary?
Yes.
When
Yes.
he's going?
I believe
What do you
Hingham.
think about it, Mike?
Hingham right now, I think their town manager is in. So that was just the opposite. In order to keep his insurance, because of family, the service member had to pay the town. The town didn't have to pay the difference. So that could be a benefit if we get some high-paid people to join the reserves.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Are we just confirming everyone's still comfortable with moving forward? Yes? Okay. In that case, let's vote. Bonnie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Paula? Yes. Aaron?
Yes, and thank you, Estelle.
Thank you.
Zach?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. And Estelle, thank you very much for all of your patience with us.
No, thank you. I appreciate the support for our service members, especially the 3 in town currently. Thank you.
Thanks, Estelle.
Thank you for your service, Estelle.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mike?
I know Jen Carlino's on, so I wanted to see if we could do Articles, 19 and 20. Article 19 is the boat and water body access master plan. And
Okay.
plan would cost $29,610, and Jen did receive a grant of $10,000. So that would be $18,610.
Congratulations on your grant, Jen. Thanks.
I know Jen talked to you about it before, so we just wonder if anyone has questions.
Anybody have questions for Jen? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to recommend Article 19.
And it would require $19,610 from free cash.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Aaron?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend Article 19. Do I have that number right?
Yes.
In the amount of $19,610 from free cash to Conservation Commission.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further questions? All right, seeing none, we will vote. Bonnie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Paula? Yes. Aaron?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
And I am also a yes, so that is unanimous.
Thank you, everyone.
The other article is Article 20, and that's the amendment to the boats and waterways bylaw.
Oh, right, the one that we were confused about the language.
We just took it out, so it's not confusing.
Oh, really?
We just removed it.
Okay.
Yep, so it would say the select board may designate town land as designated boat access launch areas. We just took out the part that said except conservation land.
That's fabulous.
That was an easy fix.
All right. Does anyone have any additional questions or need to be reminded of anything about this article? All right, you guys are all still with me, right? Okay, I will entertain a motion to recommend Article 20.
Madam Vice Chair,
Mr. Smith,
I would like to make a motion to recommend Article 20 as amended.
Second.
all right, we have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we will vote. Bonnie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Paula? Aaron?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
And I am also a yes, so that is also unanimous.
Hey, thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, Jen, you too.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mike.
I know there's been members of the building committee on, so if we could move to Article 17, and that is the article for the acquisition of real estate for Town Hall and Senior Community Center.
I'm super excited that we saved the fun part for 10 minutes of 9, Mike. But welcome to our friends from the Permanent Building Committee. Thank you for your patience.
We're hoping to wear you down, Madam Chair.
All right, so I'm sure that people have questions and thoughts that they would like to share about Article 17. I don't know if Dinah, Jack, or Jim have anything they'd like to present before we have a conversation about this.
Madam Chairman, I just think we're here to answer any questions that you have identified in the past week or so, and we'll just listen to your discussion.
All right, fantastic. And with that, Bill Rotundi has his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to stick to just the senior center at this point. What was the estimated project amount for the Mansfield Avenue project?
Madam Chairman,
Yes, go right ahead.
the estimated cost for the senior center only is, 10,764,577.
And how many square feet does the senior center currently have versus what they were going to have, or what they may have, if we were to move forward on Mansfield Ave?
Bill, this is going to be a complete guess on my part. I believe they are functioning at about 4,000 square feet currently, and they would be moving to 12,000 square feet.
Okay, and the $10 million project, we would, seek to bond that or whatever over how many years?
That would be determined by the town manager and the town treasurer. Steve?
Normally something of this size, is that 30 years, 40 years?
Normally 20.
Just 20. So $10 million, 20, and let's just say 2% interest. That's a $50,000 payment a month. So again, I'm gonna ask, did we ever look into stuff at, say, Great Woods Plaza to lease out, to give them newer space, bigger space, not necessarily, let me back up, space that, as was presented to us the other night, Mansfield Avenue was seeing lots of interest, so why would we take a potentially very popular in-demand site off the tax roll? Have we looked at other options? I think we've settled on, gee, let's just build it when it doesn't necessarily have to be built. There are other options and we haven't investigated them.
Madam Chairperson, can I say something?
Sure, Jim, go ahead.
This has been an ever-evolving process. It's not like whatever happens today is going to happen today. There's also a church on Taunton Ave that's open. It wasn't open 6 months ago. Roach Brothers wasn't open 6 months ago. We don't know what's going to be open 6 months from now. We had to go with what was currently available when we started this process. We hired an architect with what was currently available. I'm also confused about the questions about the building based on the fact a point of order is that we're talking about the land acquisition. We're not talking about the buildings. We're not talking about the art. We're talking about land acquisition as of 6 months ago, not what could come on the market. I'd be glad to accept somebody who's going to donate the land tomorrow. That's not saying it can't happen. But, 6 months ago, Roach Brothers wasn't on the market. 6 months ago, the church on Taunton Ave wasn't on the market. We hired an architect at so many $1,000s who studied which properties were available at the time. If we keep adding on to this and adding on to this, to what becomes available tomorrow, we've got to get a decision for the town meeting when and if it happens in 3 weeks. And I think keep bringing up what I say is red herrings about what could possibly, by the time we get done, and everybody in the room is going to shake their head, the Reed and Barton property could be clean and available by the time we get this done. And I don't think anybody wants to touch that. But to stick to my point, I think we stick with what the committee has suggested to the selectmen, that the selectmen has voted on, select board, and move on. If we keep going back and now we have to do a facility study of Roach Brothers and somebody brings up the church on Taunton Ave, do we hire an architect for another X amount of dollars to do another study for when, the Catholic Church goes bankrupt and St. Mary's is available in 6 months? We've got to stop looking and make a definitive decision. Thank you. I'm done.
Madam Chairwoman, if I could just respond a little bit to that, not a whole heck of a lot.
Sure.
The reason I'm bringing up the building is you can't separate them. If you want to be able to budget for the town, you need to budget the whole project, not a piece of the project. Point one, I'm not disputing the need for these buildings. I'm suggesting, however, that if I did my math right, at the 10 million, that was 50,000 a month, which is 600,000 a year. Did I do that math right? Whereas space at Roach Brothers Plaza is roughly $14 to $20 a square foot, which brings you to 216,000, a significant difference in a town that has short money. My only point. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
So when Bill brought this up, I checked into, there's a tenant at Roach Brothers Plaza. They pay $20 a square foot. They pay another $3.20 a square foot for common area maintenance. They pay 97 cents a square foot towards real estate tax, and they pay 50 cents per square foot for insurance. So that's $24.67 a square foot. With a building that we would need 12,190 square feet is what's proposed. The first year, that's $300,727.30. And there's a provision that the lease goes up 3% a year every year. So by the 10th year, you're already at $404,152.35. And that doesn't even include the cost to go and hire an architect again, to go into the Roach Brothers store and figure out what needs to be done to make that a senior center. It doesn't include the costs to renovate that into a senior center, which I imagine the way that building is set up for a supermarket will be astronomical. And it doesn't account for the fact that there's no place for the seniors to have activities outside at that building. The building committee was tasked with finding sites to build the building. They looked at 17 different properties in town. They've done a great job. And so what I just said to you, $404,152 in year 10, and you have to add into that whatever we have to borrow to renovate the building. And we don't even own it then. And we're at the mercy of some landlord. So, I mean, it just doesn't seem like a logical idea to me.
So, Bill, when you brought this up at our last meeting, I thought it was an interesting idea, and I spent some time thinking about it in the past few days. And I have to say that a couple of the thoughts that I have had are, number one, what Mr. Slattery was kind enough to share with us, that the building committee was given a specific task at a specific point in time, and we need to kind of honor that they have fulfilled that task, the ask from the select board, and that they are now at the point where they're asking us to recommend an up or down vote on their recommendation. My second thought is that the money we're being asked to authorize is less than the asking price of that lot next to Town Hall, which I think, regardless of what we use it for, is a strategic purchase that is very much a no-brainer for this town. And I think at this point that they have been trying to plan this project at multiple different locations for several years. And I think we send it to the townspeople at town meeting and it's up to them to decide if they can see the value in this or not. And I see the value in it. The other piece about the lease, frankly, is if you're going to lease a car and you drive it for 3 years and you get a new car, I think that that's great. But we've been using that little red building on East Main Street for 100 and something years. So if we can get the same amount of mileage out of a brand new facility on Mansfield Avenue, I think it's probably money well spent. And that's kind of how I feel about the whole thing. So I have many concerns about many different things, from the operating budget of these facilities to passing a debt exclusion in the town of Norton. But I think that for us right now, to vote to recommend this article and let the people in town decide whether or not they want to move it forward is what we need to decide if we're willing to do tonight.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Conway.
Thank you so much. Thank you for what you said. I agree very much with that. I think it's tough for the Permanent Building Committee to have a constantly shifting goalpost. They thought they had brought it in and crossed the goal line last summer, and then it was moved. And I agree. I think Bill's idea of renting space is an interesting one. It's one that I thought of when we started looking at this year and a half ago. You know, could we lease a town hall? I found a lot of the same issues that Mike brought up. It's also hits your operating budget, which is where, you know, this is not a place afforded an override. I know we're talking debt exclusion for the projects in the future. And again, go back to the land. This is giving the select board and the town manager the ability to negotiate purchase and sale. We're hoping to make those documents contingent on the approval of the projects. We don't want to spend money needlessly, but having some sort of commitment that we could purchase that land allows the Permanent Building Committee to start doing their site-specific work that they need to do to prepare the best package of materials for the voters in this town to make for that vote in the spring for the full projects. Now that is site-specific design. We can do environmental studies to make sure that there's not wetlands issues that aren't being seen. There's, I think we have in the next article that will get discussed about multiple estimates. So we're going to be able to benchmark the values that are there. We're not just going to have one number. We can say we've looked at different things to do that. The cost of the building, it's not cheap, especially for a town that as we all know, is continually cash strapped. I firmly believe that we need these buildings. I think we owe it to not only the PBC, but to the community itself to put this up for consideration. And the townspeople may say, no, now's not the right time. And that's perfectly valid. You know, it's a really challenging time to talk about major capital projects. But we can't keep kicking cans down the road, because eventually you're going to run out of road to kick it down. Construction costs keep increasing. You know, it's 3 or 5% a year. So say we don't do this now, we come back in 5 years. Well, now the $30-some-odd million for these two buildings is now 37, 38. That's even a more bitter pill to swallow. I think we need to give this a shot, give EBC the ability to do their site-specific work with the land, trust the select board and the town manager that we're not going to enter into a purchase and sale agreement that's not beneficial for the town, because we understand the constraints. If we end up spending $1.8 million for land that doesn't get used, shame on us. And anybody who wants can come over and slap me in the face if that happens. So, write that down. I see Bonnie and Paul and Zach. Wow, there's a lot more hands than I would like. So, double hands. All right, I'm going to stop talking before I get kicked. Thanks, guys.
Madam Vice Chair, can I go first?
Sure, Paula, go for it.
I just have a few things for, I guess, clarification and just understanding. So I've been thinking about this a lot over the past couple weeks and kind of going back and forth and understanding we might have some challenges ahead of us with our budget. How much is the piece of land on Mansfield Ave? What is that going to cost us, specifically that piece?
That is $850,000.
And you said there's been offers for that land? Like we could potentially lose it if we waited to the spring?
Mike?
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
So the 850 is their asking price. And, that's something that would have to be negotiated with the selectmen. I don't know what they've had for offers on that property. I know that we've had developers contact us about property across the street on the other side of the reservoir and Wheaton's property on Reservoir Street.
Yeah, so one more question. If this happens and we're able to have this community service senior center on Mansfield Ave, that piece of property, would there be any programs that we could have there that could be possibly revenue generating, given that it's, near water in the future?
Want me to talk to that, Diana?
Yes, please.
So it's going to be a senior community center, so recreation could use that for programs. We will have access to the reservoir that side of the street, so I don't know what else they could do out there, but I'm sure there would be opportunities. And Jennifer Carlino visited the site and was excited about the back portion that's treed and looked at the possibility of receiving grants to keep that as passive recreation out back there, which would help reduce the cost to the town for the land.
Yeah, I've watched many of the meetings and I've been following along, and I know you guys have put in so much work and looked at so many different sites, and it definitely seems like we don't have a lot of options for land for the senior center specifically. And this seems like if we wait on it, we could lose it and it could cost us a lot more money down the road. So thank you for answering my questions. Zach, go ahead.
Where do I start? A few things. On Mike's comments, first of all, if those numbers are accurate about lease space at gated properties, it's no wonder it's been empty forever. In another 20 years, it'll still be empty. And I drove by another one of their properties in Seekonk today, and it was empty. So if that's the way they run their business, it'll never be leased. But that's neither here nor there. Secondly, I don't think I've already made comments on this before. I heard what Jack had to say, and I'm a bit confused. You can ask the taxpayer to borrow money to purchase this land, but then we're not going to do it unless we have a debt exclusion. Which is it? Are we going to buy the land or are we not? If you're just looking to negotiate, you can negotiate without, any vote at all. You guys have the right to negotiate. But either you're asking the people to buy the land or you're not. Question one.
Do you want to take that, Mike, or I can try my best?
Probably could. I just wanted to say that on the part of negotiating, it's really hard to negotiate when there isn't a vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to begin negotiations to purchase the land. I can talk to these people till I'm blue in the face, but they know the way the process works in municipalities. And until we have a P&S that is executed by the Board of Selectmen with an offer, it's really hard to get a fixed price, and it's really hard to hold on to the land so it doesn't get sold to somebody else.
So you're asking me, as a private citizen, to go to town meeting and authorize the Board of Selectmen to borrow money and assume they're not. I understand where you're coming from, Mike, but I think as a resident, not of this committee, but as a resident, at town meeting, I would have a problem with that. Secondly, as I stated in previous meetings, for those of you that were here, I have my concerns, what happens if we do buy this land. And we already talked about, the budget situation, what it is. And the day after the election, if it doesn't go as planned, and we're sitting on 2 pieces of property that we've lost the tax revenue on, that we're now making mortgage payments on, it just puts us in a worse situation than when we started. So I have my concerns on all that.
Madam Chair, or Madam Vice Chair?
Go ahead.
So I'm going to respond to Jack real quick. I think we have the same response, Jack, which is that the negotiations with the landholders would be that the purchase would be contingent on the approval of the project by the town, correct? So there would not be a scenario in which we ended up holding the land with nothing to do with it. Do I have that right?
That is correct, and that was the offer to slap me away from that direction. And the tax revenue for those properties, we looked at that. I believe, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't have it in front of me, but it's less than $8,000 a year. So between the two, and this includes 116 to 120 Mansfield Ave and the Columbia property. So I think the Columbia property is only like $1,700 a year. It's dirt cheap.
And it's about $8,700 for both properties, from what I've been told.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Sure, go ahead, Zach.
Okay, if that is the case, and Mr. Conway is on record that he's promising, we're here, this is being recorded, I will hold you accountable, that you're not going to buy the property without authorization from the town, without debt exclusion, then I have nothing more to say. I will take you for your word, and, you've changed my mind. But I'm going to hold your feet to the fire, so I don't have a problem with it if that's Mr. Conway's word.
Thanks, Zach. That's my word.
So, just to put my own 2 cents in, I guess, in the 5 years that I've been on the finance committee, I have to say that every time it comes to borrowing for one of these big projects, there's a very circular chicken or egg argument that we always have. And what I have learned is that we do things kind of backwards, and we have to commit to the money, whether it's the full amount of a debt exclusion when we're building a huge addition on a school and the state is going to pay for a big chunk of it. We still have to authorize the full amount. And then we only borrow and bond what we actually have to spend. But it looks really scary at the beginning. So even though Jack has committed to us that they will put this clause in any purchase and sale, if someone were to come back to the select board and say, we won't accept that clause in this contract, with having approved this, I believe they would be well within their power to remove it. And frankly, if that's what it takes to get the deal done after we have spent all of this money planning and everything else, I would be okay with that. Anybody else?
Can I add one more comment?
Sure.
You also, I think in the next article, I don't have it in front of me, you're asking, I think, for $80,000 or something to that effect for a design and plan of this facility. Is that correct, Mike? Is that the next article? I don't have it in front of me.
Yes, that's Article 20.
81,000.
So then, seeing we're all, making friends here tonight, can we agree to put that on hold until we have a vote from the residents of town? I think we've spent enough money already. I think, in my view, it's time to get it to a vote, whether it's in the spring or a special town meeting or whatever the select board decides. But I would say, don't spend another cent until the people of Norton have spoken. You've spent enough. Thank you very much to the building committee. I think they've done a good job under the circumstances. These buildings are needed. There's no question about that. But I would say, unless we have a commitment from the townsfolk, let's not spend another cent.
So, Mike, correct correct me if I'm wrong, but that 81 grand is coming out of the town hall fund that is already earmarked and set aside. It's not going to hit our free cash or anything else.
And I was thinking about your chicken and egg theory, that we kind of hit that with this, because if we don't use this money to come up with definitive cost analysis of the two buildings, when we go the next step to ask the residents to fund these projects, they're going to say, well, have you done an in-depth cost analysis to determine that this is...
Right, so this money will help us make the site-specific plans that we need. It's coming out of the funds that are already earmarked for town hall, so it doesn't impact any of our other budget money. Right. And the issue, if we don't vote the next article, Zach, is then we can't vote it again without either a special town meeting or until the spring. And I believe that the Permanent Building Committee and the Select Board would like to be able to vote on the project in its finalized form by this spring. So we need the money to be authorized now so they can get the work done.
We don't have a cost estimate at this point for these two buildings?
So Madam Chair,
Yes, Jack, go right ahead.
we have one, but as evidenced by even my own reaction the last time it came up, having multiple estimates to validate your cost just provides a level of confidence for people that are making the decision. Because you could have somebody that is either very low or very high. So we're trying to spread the field and understand what the true cost is. We've got one estimate. I don't have my camera on, so I tap up one finger. We have one estimate. I've asked the PBC as, you know, to include a second one through this, again, for a higher degree of confidence. Because I think that's what this is about. For this $80,000 is an investment to prepare the best possible case for these buildings. There's other pieces that need to come along with it as well. Like Mike is working on what the true cost to operate the new facilities will be. There's also going to be a study done for if we do not move forward with these projects in the spring, what is it going to take to cobble together a town hall and the senior center going for another few years. And that's not cheap. And that's probably not going to be funded through a debt exclusion, so that's going to have to be hitting our operating line items. There's a lot of balls in the air, but again, this is an investment, and what the money was intended to do was to establish this case for the voters.
Madam Chairman, if I might?
Go ahead, Dinah.
The process of a municipal building project never runs smooth as you would hope it to do. This is a three-pronged project. We need to have land to plan where the buildings are going to go. Then we need, in step 2, to design the buildings and do the preliminary studies. We're budgeting for 2 cost estimations, road work, wetlands issues, anything that could impact the final cost of putting these 2 buildings on this piece of land. That is what we would then take to town meeting to get approval in April to go forward. The third piece is to take what we have built upon in steps 1 and 2, turn those into design and construction drawings, and actually start the building project. So it takes 3 levels to do this. We need to have a piece of land to put these buildings upon. Then we need to take the designs that we already own from the previous attempt, adapt them to the pieces of property that we are now looking at, make sure that they'll fit, there's no wetlands issue, there's no environmental issue, do traffic studies, get everything all set to move to a spring town meeting to act the community whether or not they do want to go forward with these projects. But without your vote tonight, we can't move into steps. Well, step 1 would be, we'd go to town meeting without with your recommendation against, and the selectmen's recommendation too, so that should be a really fun time. And then we really can't go forward with the second step to actually build the building, the conceptual buildings into fruition. So it's not an easy, it's really like making sausage, and it's ugly, and I'm sorry, but this is the way that it is.
Really ugly.
All right, do we have any other questions, comments, hysterical remarks?
Yeah.
All right. Seeing none.
I got a question.
What's your question, Peter?
Yes, I agree what everybody says, and this tunnel is what Woman talking about, said we can put it on Band-Aid on that feeling for too long this time that we need a new town hall. And the senior center is getting old and decrepit, and it is in the winter time, it is a hazard for elderly and disabled people to walk in their door. It is time that we need a new senior center, and we need a new town hall. Vote yes.
Thanks, Peter.
Right.
All right. Anybody else? No? Okay. Let's vote on Article, well, I will entertain a motion on Article 17, the acquisition of land.
Madam Chairman?
Mr. Smith?
Madam Vice Chair? This would be simply a motion to approve the article as written?
Yep, we're going to recommend.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to recommend the article as written. Article 17.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none.
Well,
Mr. Rotundi, you're getting it on the wire.
So I just want to clarify that even though the select board and the town manager are going to try to include in the P&S negotiations that if the town decides not to go forward with this, you don't have to purchase, that if the parties that be that own these two separate properties say, you're either buying it or not, we're still okay with that.
Say that one more time. Say that one more time, please.
Yeah, I don't understand.
So if I heard you correctly, what you're saying is that we are authorizing this, and while we have good faith in our friend Mr. Conway that he will do everything within his power to put the clause in the purchase and sale agreement that says that it is pending approval of our debt exclusion, that if they refuse that, that we're okay with them moving forward without it.
Yes, because I don't want to hit them. So I just want to know this ahead of time.
Madam Chairman? Ms. Pete?
Yes, Pete.
So we're not actually authorizing them to do anything. Our vote here is saying, you know what, townspeople, go ahead. You decide. Because we're not deciding here. We're just deciding whether we said, yeah, we think it's a good idea. And whether I think it's a good idea or not, I'm going to vote yes because I think the townspeople ought to just decide for themselves.
All right, thank you, Peter. I agree with that. I also feel like we can't really hamstring them with this demand that they put it in the purchase and sale because we really have no way to, we have no recourse. Like, we can't force them to do anything. And even more so than that, it's awfully hard to negotiate when we have to do all of these conversations in public to begin with. So they're already behind the 8 ball before they even start because everybody that owns this land is going to watch this video and be like, oh, I got their number. They want my property.
The only thing I'm trying to verify is what I've heard is that it's going to be an attempt. It's not a requirement, just an attempt. So if it's there or not, at the end of it all, it doesn't matter. But the attempt is a good faith effort that they're gonna try to include that. That's all I'm trying to clarify, because that's what I thought I heard.
I believe that's what I heard, but we will ask Jack to verify.
I think that's probably an accurate summation. I tend to be Pollyanna, and I like to think about it. So I think a good faith effort will be made, and I'm more than happy to make a personal commitment that if we are not able to get that agreement in, or that language in the agreement, to come back and talk to you guys about that before anything gets signed. And again, and I'm one member of 5 on the select board, so regardless of my position, 3 other folks could feel a different way and sway everything. So it's not up to me to speak on their behalf, so I can speak only for myself.
No, I just wanted clarification, so thank you.
All right, Mr. Slattery.
I think Jack is making a safe bet. The Clemmy property has been up for sale for 10 years. So I don't see anybody knocking down the doors to buy his property. The property on 140 on Mansfield Ave has been on the market, I think, for 1.5 years. With the marijuana stuff coming in and people looking for other sites, they may be looking at a pre-existing building versus having to knock down and build there. I don't know. I don't know what the market is for those 2 properties, but I think Select Person Conway is making a safe bet when I don't think those properties are, people are knocking down, especially the one next to the town hall. It's been on the market for at least 10 years. Now it's become, an apple of somebody's eye, but I don't know, and I'd just like to see a vote and get this over with. As Tom DeLuca used to say, I gotta get to bed sometime. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. All right. Do we have a motion? We have a motion. We had a second. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share before we vote? All right, hearing no one. Bonnie?
Yes.
Bill?
Long-winded answer is, though conceptually I'm against this, I am voting yes because the townspeople should be able to vote it.
I appreciate your candor, Bill. Mike?
Yes.
Rick? Uh-oh, Rick, did we lose Rick? Yeah. All right, I think Rick went to bed.
Yes.
Oh, there you are. I couldn't find you on my little Brady Bunch screen. All right, Rick's a yes. Peter?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Paula? Aaron?
Yes.
Zach?
Long-winded answer is, on Mr. Conway's commitment, I will vote yes.
All right, and I too am a yes, so this passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now on to the next exciting article, number 18. I'm assuming, Mike.
There's more? I know it's late, but if you can just do this when the building committee's on. And if I could just say, this article would be to transfer the amount of $81,150 from the funds appropriated under Article 12 of the October 23rd, 2017 meeting.
Article 12, October 23rd, 2000 what?
17.
Because we're going to need this in a little while. Okay. Okay. So this is to move the money so that our friends on the Permanent Building Committee can now do the site-specific study following the acquisition or signed purchase and sale of this land that we just voted on, which is very exciting. Does anyone have questions for the Permanent Building Committee or anybody else? Aaron?
Just as to the wording of the motion and some clarification.
Well, I think you want to move that we recommend transferring $81,150 from...
$150?
Yes, $81,150.
Thank you.
From the town hall fund that was established by Article 12 of the October 23rd, 2017 town meeting. Is that right, Mike?
That's correct. And
okay.
For the purpose of obtaining a feasibility study for the new town hall and senior community center.
All right, now that we've got all the legalities handled.
Mouthful, and I don't have it in front of me, so hang on.
I can share the article if you want. You could just vote to approve Article 18 as written with the money to be appropriated out of what you just read.
If I say that I would entertain the motion, can Aaron just say, so moved?
Well, let's make her want to get this done right, I guess.
Okay.
So, make a motion to approve, make a motion to recommend Article 18 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $81,150 from the town hall fund established at the town meeting of October 2017 to go to engineering feasibility study for the town hall and senior community center.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any additional questions or discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. Bonnie, you're up.
Yes.
Bill? Uh-oh, did we lose Bill? I don't see Bill.
He's there.
Oh,
he's there. Oh, he's, you know what? There he is.
How about a thumbs up?
Oh.
What?
Can you hear me?
Oh, now we can hear you, yes. We're asking you to vote for Article 18.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Just ask my question.
Mike?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Paula? Yes. Aaron?
Yes.
Zach?
I will hold my nose and vote yes.
And I am also a yes, which makes this unanimous. And I would like to thank Dinah and Jim and Jack and Bob for being here with us this evening. And I wish you the best of luck as you move forward. And good luck at town meeting also.
Thank you all very much for your support. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
You all too.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. You.
So, Mike, are we done, or is there more fun to come?
It all depends. If you want to continue and do the Crane Street relocation and the North Washington Street relocation, the planning board voted on those the other night too. So, let me see.
Those are 9 and 10, no, 14 and 15?
So basically what these are is North Washington Street, is an accepted roadway, as is Crane. But when they were accepted, they did put plans on file. And so that was discovered when the surveyors were doing the work for the bike trail. So in order to receive state and federal funds, which are going to be paying for the bike trail, they require that if you're crossing a public way, plans need to be put on file. And so what the planning board did last night was to approve the plans for North Washington Street and also the plan for the portion of Crane Street.
So is there any financial anything associated with this? No, we're just...
No, there's no takings.
Okay.
Just a formality to put those plans on file.
All right, then I would entertain a motion to recommend Article 14.
Madam Vice Chair,
Mr. Smith?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend Article 14 as written.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or further discussion? Hearing none, we can vote. Bonnie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so that is unanimous. And it's the same story for Crane Street on Article 15, Mike?
Yes.
Madam,
And I would, oh, go ahead.
I just want to do it because Aaron's been doing it all night.
All right. Whoever writes the minutes for this will be thrilled that you changed it up. Go
So
for it.
I would like to make a motion that we recommend Article 15 as written.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there any additional questions? Hearing none. Bonnie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Paula? Yes. Aaron?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so that is also unanimous. All right.
Do we want to wait for the others for Monday night, or is it getting late for you guys? It's fine with me if you want to wait.
Madam
Bonnie just gave me the crazy eyes. I think she wants to wait.
Okay, that's fine.
Madam Vice Chair.
Yes, sir.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
You can say given the lateness of the hour, that's what.
Yeah, given the lateness of the hour, indeed. Just a quick reminder before we vote to adjourn, please let me know, or Steve, or both of us, if you guys can make the meeting with the select board and school committee on whatever that Thursday is, October 15th.
Hey, Amy,
So we can be sure we have a quorum.
Do we have a time for that?
6:30.
Okay, thank you.
And the good news is we'll only have 2 meetings that week because Monday is the Columbus Day holiday. We tried to save you from 3 meetings. They wanted to meet next Thursday. We were like, no.
Indigenous Peoples' Day?
Oh, I don't know. Sorry. Yes, Indigenous Peoples' Day, not Columbus.
And what is the subject of that meeting? Is it to discuss these projects or just general?
I believe it is to discuss the overruns in the school committees, in the school budget, and what the second half of the year may look like as their CARES Act funding runs out on 12/31. So they just want to make sure that everyone is very clear on where things stand. So the agenda. I think both the select board and the school committee have their own meetings that night, so hopefully we can dispense with the joint piece in relatively short order and they can move on to their own business. But no promises. It's 9:40. All right, I have a motion and a second to adjourn. Let's vote. Bonnie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Paula? Yes. Aaron?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
And I am a yes also. Thank you guys for sticking with me tonight. This has been an adventure. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Madam Chair.
Good night.
Good job.
Good night, Peter. Good night, everybody.